Everyone, so today we are taking up an important topic, that is the Yamuna pollution within the overall broader topic of river pollution. So we will be dealing with the Yamuna pollution as a case study, because you must have witnessed this thing that in last few days this topic is making headlines across all the major newspapers as well as the TV news debates, if at all you are watching TV news debates, and a lot of articles have been written about it. So the question is that what unique factors operate in river Yamuna, making it one of the most polluted rivers not only in India but across the world. Right. So that is why we have taken up this important topic. This is going to be a brief session, but a precise one, because here we will be discussing about the unique factors which operate in the river basin of Yamuna, making it one of the most polluted rivers. Are you getting it? This topic obviously will find its importance in General Studies Paper 3 Environment, because there you have the explicitly written sub theme of pollution. This topic can also be asked in General Studies Paper 1 in the Geography section. And because we are dealing this topic in the form of a case study, so obviously there will be a lot of details in this. So you can quote it as a case study in your essays also. And last but not the least, for the geography optional students, this topic, this case study again becomes very important. Okay, so you can write these details, case studies in your geography optional answers also, if at all they are asked. Now, the flow of this session is going to be that we will be analyzing river Yamuna right from its origin, its starting point, towards its last point when it finally merges with river Ganga in Allahabad, Prayagraj. Okay, so we will be bifurcating river Yamuna into different stretches. Let's say we will be dealing with the Himalayan stretch, then the upper Yamuna stretch, then the Delhi stretch, then the eutrophication stretch, and then the diluted stretch. Okay, maybe it might sound complex to you, but it is a very simple one. Okay, so just be with me for next around 15 to 20 minutes and we will discuss every detail about it. Why these stretches are important? Because in every stretch some unique factors are operating which are polluting river Yamuna. For example, let's say when we have to discuss about a dominant factor, let's say, which is polluting river Yamuna near Agra and Mathura, that factor might be entirely different from the factor which is operating in Delhi polluting river Yamuna. Are you getting it? And as we have discussed multiple times in the class, that when it comes to geography and related topics, the special analysis has to be there. You must be able to understand that what makes this particular region different from the others. Those who have taken geography optional also, they also know that the areal differentiation and the regional geography forms the soul of geography. Okay, so that is why we will be discussing this topic in much detail, and with the help of let's say hand-drawn map. Let's say if I have to draw river Yamuna, if I have to chart river Yamuna's tract from the source, from its origin. So let's say this is the rough track of river Yamuna moving like this, and this point, if we know that this is Yamunotri, so there are some important points along this river Yamuna which you need to understand. Okay, so the first point is Yamunotri. We all know this particular point, right? The second important point here is the Hathni Kund barrage. Okay, Hathni Kund barrage. Then here you have another important point, which is Tajewala. It is better if you remember these names. Even if you don't remember these specific names, the most important is the Hathni Kund barrage. And then you enter into next important point, that is Wazirabad in Delhi. Okay, and then you have Okhla barrages. Okay, so these are the important points. If let's say we have to see different sections, so how this river stretch of Yamuna is divided into different sections. This one, obviously, the Himalayan stretch is there. Okay, so this is basically where you are having river Yamuna Himalayan stretch. You are having river Yamuna in its youth stage. Now from this Tajewala towards the Wazirabad barrage, this section is known as what? This is the upper Yamuna stretch. Okay, this is upper Yamuna stretch. From Wazirabad barrage to the Okhla barrage is the Delhi stretch. And we know that this stretch is responsible for the majority pollution in river Yamuna, right? Then as we move ahead, next important point in this case study is a point where river Chambal, we know that Chambal is an important tributary of Yamuna. So this is a point where river Chambal merges with river Yamuna. And then we know that there are a lot of tributaries which are coming from the central India merging into Yamuna. And then finally at this particular point, let's say Prayagraj, here river Yamuna finally merges with river Ganga. Okay. So these are different stretches in which different factors do operate. When we have to talk about this particular stretch, that is the Himalayan stretch as well as the upper Yamuna stretch, this stretch obviously will be having clean water, right? So this is having a clean water. Why? What are the reasons responsible for clean water? There are two reasons. One is the natural reason. Natural reason is that here the river is in youth stage. If the river is in youth stage, that means it is having a very huge velocity, a very huge discharge. If the river is having a huge discharge and huge velocity, so we know that whatever pollutants will be entering into the river, they will be dispersed, right? Rivers will be having their own regenerative capacity, their self-cleansing mechanism. So this is the reason, one natural reason, that why here you will not be having a lot of pollution. Also, this has to be understood in the context that when these rivers enter into the plain area, that is during the mature and the old stage, now because the riverbed topography is getting flatter, so obviously all the pollutants which are there in the river will try to settle down. Velocity is getting reduced, discharge is getting reduced, this bed topography slope is getting reduced, so pollutants will start getting settling. But here opposite is happening. So natural reasons. And obviously, if we have to talk about the anthropogenic reasons, so obviously here the human interference is very less. These are the reasons responsible for low pollution. When we talk about the Delhi stretch, okay, so this Delhi stretch is basically the red area from Wazirabad to the Okhla barrage. Now this particular area is the red area. Reason why we call this as the red zone is the length of this particular area is just 22 kilometers. The total length of river Yamuna, try to understand it in the context, the total length of Yamuna is more than 1000 kilometers. It is somewhat around 1300 to 1400 kilometers. More than 1000 kilometers. Out of that 1000 kilometers, the Delhi stretch is just 22 kilometers in length. On the contrary, this is responsible for 76% of the total pollution in river Yamuna. Now just understand the severity of this particular stretch when it comes to river Yamuna pollution. Are you getting it? 22 kilometers of length responsible for 76% of river pollution. Why? What are the reasons responsible for this? So we need to understand this thing in a much detailed manner. Okay, that what basically are the causes for this. Okay, the first and the foremost cause responsible for this is that you will see in the upper stretch of Yamuna, that is during the youth stages, there are very small tributaries. You must have read about Tons, Asan, okay, small, very small tributaries. But as soon as you cross this particular point, that is Wazirabad, as soon as the river enters into the Delhi area, here there is no extra influx of fresh water. In the upper areas, because a lot of streams come into the river, so they increase the concentration of fresh water and hence reducing the contamination pollutants. Are you getting it? But as soon as river enters this particular area, that is Wazirabad, no fresh water influx is there, and that is why this becomes one of the important reasons that there is no fresh water influx, right? The second important reason, we know that Delhi region is one of the most densely populated areas again for India as well as the world. A lot of urbanization is there, a lot of slums are there, irregular colonies are there, and a huge population density is there. Okay, so what happens is that a lot of domestic waste enters into River Yamuna. According to Delhi Pollution Control Committee, it says that around 90% of the domestic waste, 90% of the domestic waste enters into River Yamuna. Okay. Similarly, there is a report which says that more than 50% of the municipality sewage, 50% of the municipality sewage is not getting treated well. So untreated waste is getting into the River Yamuna. Are you getting it? Again, the Delhi Jal Board says that around 8 out of 40 sewage treatment plants are working, are functional. There are 40 sewage treatment plants which were designed in order to cater to the treatment of the waste. The requirement was around 40 sewage treatment plants. Out of those 40 STPs, just 8 are functional. And if obviously if just 8 are functional, so more than 50% of the municipal sewage will not be treated and will be directly enter into the river water. Are you getting it? And huge domestic waste is already present. Third factor is responsible, which is the industrial affluents. Now we know that Delhi region is one of the major industrial regions of India. Okay, so report says that when we talk about the industrial affluents, the data says around 44 million liters per day of industrial effluents is going into Yamuna. 44 million liters per day. Just imagine the severity and intensity of the problem. Okay. This industrial effluents, because we are discussing Delhi as a region as a case study, so there are two important drains. Who are from Delhi or Delhi NCR region, they must be knowing the two important names. The names are the Najafgarh drain as well as the Shahadra drain. This Najafgarh and Shahadra drains are basically responsible for the maximum contribution for what? Heavy metal contamination, iron contamination, phosphate contamination. Right? So this is the reason. Now, when we talk about the phosphate contamination, in just last few days, you must have seen the image of River Yamuna, whereby on the Yamuna surface there was a huge white foam, white froth which got developed. Now, how that is known as river frothing. Now, how that white foam develops, there are two things which are responsible for this. The one are the physical factors. We are not discussing that. The physical factors basically are because there are barrages and river from very high height jumps and there is a formation of huge bubbles. That because here we are discussing this thing from the perspective of pollution. So phosphate pollution is one important thing. Okay. And the second important thing is the ammonia pollution. This ammonia and phosphate, when enters into the water, there is a chemical reaction and a white foam develops, right? So of no fresh water influx, domestic reasons are responsible, industrial affluents are responsible. And next reason, that is the fourth and the another important reason, is the agricultural factors. Okay. Now, these agricultural factors basically form an important component from the point Okhla towards the point where the Chambal merges with River Yamuna. This stretch basically is known as what? Eutrophication stretch. Okay. Are you getting it? So there are important stretches. First was Himalayan stretch. Then was Upper Yamuna stretch, where the rivers are relatively clean. Then was Delhi stretch, which was responsible for the majorly responsible for the pollution. Then you have Eutrophication stretch, whereby the agricultural reasons are more dominant. Now here when we talk about the Eutrophication stretch, Now, because river now has the basin areas of Rajasthan, Western UP, as well as MP. Okay. Now, this particular region is also known for agriculture. Also, from the upstream states of Punjab and Haryana, the agricultural pollutants are coming here. Now, in agriculture, we know that we are using a lot of fertilizers. So, what is happening is that ammonia pollution is happening because of this. A lot of nitrogenous contaminants are entering into river. We all know the outcome of excessive nitrogenous pollutants in a river body. That is known as what? Eutrophication. If eutrophication is taking place, if algae bloom is happening, so obviously there will be relative opaqueness in the water, which will not allow what? The sunlight to penetrate the river water. If sunlight is not able to penetrate, then what will happen? There will be mass deaths of aquatic animals. If there are huge deaths are increasing, what will happen? Again, the opaqueness will increase, further exaggerating the vicious cycle that now the sunlight will not be able to penetrate. And if all this thing is happening, there is no sunlight, the plants and animal life is getting decayed, and decayed matter is getting deposited into the river, and provided the river's own self-cleansing ability is getting reduced because now we have entered into the plains. So what it will eventually lead to is that it will eventually reduce the dissolved oxygen content, and it will further increase the carbon dioxide in the water, thereby changing the water chemistry. Are you getting it? Now come to this particular point, that is when river Chambal enters over here. Now, because Chambal enters over here, so Chambal is a major tributary of river Yamuna. Chambal is bringing a huge chunk of fresh water into river Yamuna. And then we also know that beyond Chambal, there are other tributaries also, small or large, which are entering into Yamuna. And then from this point, that is confluence of Chambal, till the point of confluence of Yamuna with Ganga, this particular stretch relatively is known as what? Dilution stretch. Okay, now here, because the pollution is getting diluted, because the huge fresh water is coming, but again geographers worry the point that now, because there is a climate change which is happening, the rivers are getting dried up, human encroachments are getting intensified, so even such rivers like Chambal are getting dried. So obviously from down the line, let's say 20, 25, 30 years down the line, the Chambal and other rivers will not be able to bring such amount of water, and hence the pollution issue of these rivers like Yamuna and Ganga will further increase. So this is a relation between climate change and river pollution. Are you getting it? So this is a basic analysis along the entire stretch of river Yamuna, starting from Yamunotri till the point it joins river Ganga at Prayagraj. These are the causes which are responsible in different factors. For example, in Delhi stretch, these are the factors. And when we talk about from Okhla towards this Chambal point, that is the eutrophication stretch, agriculture is a dominant reason. Beyond this point, a lot of rivers are entering. So this is the dilution stretch, right? So these are the causes. If we, let's say, have to talk about the impacts, so there can be a multiple impacts in this regard. Just think about all the important impacts. Are you aware about some numerical values? Let me just tell you to elaborate more on the severity of the problem, because only then you will understand this particular thing. According to WHO limits, for example, we have talked here about the phosphate pollution, this one. Okay. So according to the this phosphate, the WHO limit says that around 0.005 milligrams per liter to 0.05 milligrams per liter is the recommended value for phosphate which is allowed in the river water. What is the value in river Yamuna? It is 0.5. Don't go into this figure that 0.5 is very less. Recommended value is this rate. So that means it is around 100 times higher. The phosphate values in river Yamuna is 100 times higher than the recommended value. Still, if you feel that this is the pollution, the problem is not that grave, Let me quote another numerical value for you. So here, impacts. One is the health impact. So recently, you might have seen this news that in order to show the protest against the Aam Aadmi Party, the BJP leader went to the River Yamuna in Delhi and he took a dive into the River Yamuna to show the signal, to show the protest that see how much River Yamuna is polluted. And just 2 days after his bathing into River Yamuna, he was admitted into the hospital. Why this happens, why it is so severe when it comes to the health issues? Again, a second numerical value. The limit says that around 500 coliform bacteria per 1000 milliliter of river water is a recommended range for what? For bathing. Just imagine the actual presence of this coliform in river Yamuna. The recommended limit is 500. The actual limit, according to the studies, is 1.1 billion. 1.1 billion. Phosphate was just 100 times. It is billion times. Are you getting it? This is the gravity of the situation. Okay. So there are health impacts. Then the another important thing is the environmental impacts. So environmental impacts, obviously, when the river chemistry is getting changed, so obviously there will be huge loss of aquatic life, right? Aquatic life will be destroyed. There will be increase in biochemical oxygen demand. There will be decrease in dissolved oxygen content. Because there is increase in heavy metal pollution, so you will witness the situations of biomagnification. These are certain keywords, so obviously it will enrich your answer, so you should use it. Then there will be increase in bioaccumulation, right? All of this biomagnification and accumulation eventually will lead to what? It will lead to disruptions in the food web of the aquatic ecosystem, right? The third important impact can be on economy. Okay. And here the most important sector is agriculture. Now, agriculture is a very unique sector because it is also the contributor, one of the major contributors for river pollution, and it is also one of the sufferers of river pollution. Why? If the water is getting polluted, this is the water which will again enter into the soil, will form the part of the soil moisture, will be used for irrigating the fields. So all the pollutants which are there in the river water, it will go to the soil, and hence there will be disruption in soil chemistry also. The salinity, the acidity, the pH values of soil will change. The soil structure will change. The soil composition will change, which obviously is going to impact what? Agriculture. Okay, so these are the major impacts. You can think about the other impacts also. Now, another section is that what can be a way ahead? What is a viable solution to deal with the problem of Yamuna pollution? Experts say, see, first, as a student of geography, the first thing you need to understand that you need to increase the water, fresh water influx in river Yamuna. So there has to be increase in the fresh water influx. How can you do it? One, Delhi can ask Haryana to supply its water, which politically is a very sensitive matter, but yes, that it can be one point that if both the governments can come to a table and agree on this particular solution, because river Yamuna, or for that matter any river, does not recognize any government. Okay, it does not know any state political boundaries. Okay, it will be equal to everyone, and the downstream states will be more vulnerable because all of the pollution is coming to the downstream states. Are you getting it? So one is you can ask Haryana, but until and unless this is not happening, what we should do is we should revive the paleo channels. Okay, and third important thing is that we must go for the rainwater harvesting. so that if the rainwater is getting harvested, so obviously we are doing something on the demand aspect, and then the supply aspect will also be taken care of. So if our demand goes down, then that means that the water from the river Yamuna which is required will go down. If it is going down, that means what, the water volume in the river Yamuna will remain over there. We are not extracting it. Okay, so one is fresh water influx, right? Second important thing is the sustainable, just a minute. Second important thing is leveraging technology. So here you need to invest in sewage treatment plants. Here you need to invest in technologies, for example, bioremediation, in situ treatments. Okay, so bioremediation can be there, aeration can be there, oxidation of the waters can be there. So these can be some technological solutions for this. And the last component, that is the long-term solution, is what? The sustainable approaches. Okay, sustainable approach. This will be the long-term solution. In sustainable approach, obviously we need to frame policies to support what? Sustainable urbanization, sustainable agriculture, sustainable river ecosystems. Then there can be again a lot of steps inside them, but we are not entering into it. Okay, so these are the three broad viable solutions to deal with the problem of river pollution. Okay, so this was the topic which I wanted to discuss, and this is the overall content. If you want, you can take the screenshot also, right? Okay, so we have discussed in this section that the various river stretches of Yamuna, starting from Yamunotri up to the confluence of Ganga Yamuna, and how different factors operate in different regions, different stretches. What are the detrimental impacts? What can be a way ahead? Okay, so that is the thing. I hope you have enjoyed this session. If yes, then just let us know. Do like the video and comment also. And those students who have remained till now in this lecture, that is how I will get to know that how serious you are. Just write the names of the tributaries of river Yamuna, all the tributaries, right bank as well as left bank tributaries, starting right from the beginning up to this last point, in the comment section. Okay, so that I can know that how many of you have watched this session till the last. Okay, so thank you everyone. All the very best and study hard. Okay.